my friends. The night of the nights has come. The night of the nights. Open your heart and your mind. Move to the rhythm and dance into your own beautiful reality. Beautiful reality. Feel free and expect the unexpected.
Hi guys, this is the advisor and welcome back to my channel. Now guys, you know one of the things I regret about being black, or what I'm ashamed of about being black, is because black people do not think. They do not think individually. They just follow the herd. Anywhere the group is going, they just lock their mind and follow the group without thinking, even if the group is taking them down into the abyss. We do not like to think as individuals. And that is why black people are in the state where they are now and cannot rise out of poverty and cannot face the world as a formidable force, even though as blacks we are the ultimate human being. Now, this particular video is not meant to appeal to the broader masses of blacks across the world. This particular video, because it is not what you would call a gossip video. This is a video for deep thinkers, people who need to be enlightened. Because as you guys know, my channel is about enlightenment and uplifting my race. So me just go hold a little reason we don't want to open eyes to something. For those of you who wishes to see. Because it has been said, that there is none so blind as those who refuse to see. And as black people, let me tell you something about us. We just hold on to something and we hold on to it for dear life, and we do not question it, and we do not care whether it is true or false. And sometimes when we find out say it's lie, we hold on to it for the better, and we hate anybody who try to wake us up, because we don't realize that knowledge is power. And the reason why other races have everything over us is because we are afraid of knowledge, we are afraid of truth, we are afraid of the facts, we are afraid to go there. So we sell out our power to other races. All we have to do in life is to think. Just think. Just start being of independent thought. And be honest enough to accept the facts when they are presented to us. As I've said before, the moment you stop thinking, you have handed over your own power to those who are actually in control of you. You can take full control of yourself just by taking control of your own thoughts. Now, guys, that was just an intro to what I want to talk to about what is going on now in Kenya and how it is a symptom of what is affecting blacks across the planet and what can affect and is affecting Jamaica at this very moment as we speak. Well, if you stay this far, probably you are of some intellect, you have some level of intellectual capacity, or this wouldn't have interested you to the point where you would have been here 3 minutes later. I guess you want to learn, so stick around. And I'm going to show you, we're going to connect some dots. If you stay long enough, we're going to connect some dots and I'm going to show you how all this, what is going on in Kenya today, is affecting and can affect and have long-term repercussions for blacks all over the world. On Tuesday, June 25th, 2024, this was one of the bloodiest days in Kenya's recent history. Roughly 27 people were slain, some in front of the Kenyan parliament and others in other Nairobi slums. They were killed by the country's security forces just for exercising their human rights to freedom of expression, and peaceful assembly. That day was the culmination of a week of violence during which young protesters opposing new taxes and the government's excesses were abducted, arrested, beaten, tear gassed, and shot to death. The Kenyan president, William Ruto, threatened to intensify the repression. He denounced the protesters as treasonous and smeared those who were involved in the protest as criminals. President Ruto advised the security forces to use all measures necessary. In other words, his words were to deploy all measures to end the protest. But why were these people protesting? I'll tell you why. The government of Kenya had imposed some extremely brutal taxes upon the people. There was a 16% tax on a loaf of bread, and that tax went to other baked products. And there was a 25% duty on cooking oil. Of course, there were many other taxes, but I'm just to give you an example. And honestly, the people just couldn't take it anymore. Some years ago, Junior Reid sang a song called Babylon Released the Chains. And if most of you might remember in that song, the man said, Babylon released the chain, but them I use them brain. But guess what? We now use our brain at the same time. All of the countries that used to be in Africa who were involved in the slave trade and who take Africans from the continent, beat them, rape them, use their labor to make billions and trillions of dollars over the past 500 years. They pretend to leave Africa in the 60s, but they never left. They are blacks in Africa are still as enslaved as 400 years ago. The only difference now is that them tidy it up and make it look, the slavery look pretty. Frankly speaking, colonialism never ended in Africa, and it is still there up to this blessed day. And before I get back to the main topic, let me tell you guys something. There are only 4 free states in Africa today. 4, only 4. The first one that became free was Rwanda. And it only became free after the French and the Belgians separate the people and cause them to massacre several millions of their own people and left. And then that country rose from the tragedy and became free. And for over 20 years, no African country was free again until just a few months ago, when 3 African states became free: Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. I will say more about that, but this is, as we said, this is about Kenya. I was just putting things in perspective to let you understand what we as black people are really facing. Now, I'm going to tell you exactly how they kept Africa enslaved and how it caused what happened to Kenya today to be happening to Kenya. First of all, I'm going to call out the name of the usual suspects: Portugal, Spain, Britain, France, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, and a country that I won't call its name, but I'll refer to it by the most appropriate term: the perfect parasite. And listen to how I use the term perfect, the word perfect in this particular case. I don't use perfect to mean good, you know, or anything named good. Perfect in that it fits strictly the definition of what it is called. Just like how when you say a perfect storm is a storm that fits the perfect definition, it is the largest, it is the most powerful, it does the most damage, and it is the most tragic of all storms. That's a perfect storm. So a perfect parasite when you call a country a perfect parasite, it is the country that sucks the blood of the most people and causes the most war and everything on planet Earth. And of course, rob the most riches. Now, these usual suspects, guess what? All of them are part of an organization known as the United Nations. 3 of them in that bunch have permanent seats at the UN and have veto powers. Other 2 who have never had slaves and who have never exploited Africa are Russia and China. But I just said that in passing. But I'll come back to that to explain something. The perfect parasites actually leads the entire United Nations. The perfect parasite is also a member of the International Monetary Fund. The perfect parasite is also the head of the World Bank. The perfect parasite is also the head of the International Development Bank. And also the head of the Inter-American Development Bank. While on the face of it, you might not see where it holds any position in some of these agencies, but the perfect parasite is the head of all of that. It backs all the other former colonists who are in cahoots to this day with the perfect parasite, and together they gouge out all of the riches out of Africa. But here is how they keep Africa poor, and let us use Kenya as the example to see what's going on down there now in Kenya. All we have to do, is to connect the dots. Connect the dots. It is the simplest thing in the world. Remember when you guys used to go to school and when you were in primary school, no, in basic school, you used to get these little drawing books, these coloring books that you connect the dots from 1 to 25 or 1 to whatever number, and it forms the picture of a bird or an aeroplane or fish or something. It is that simple. Now let us connect some dots. All of the former slave countries are inside an organization called NATO. All of the slave countries, former slave countries, what is the former? All of the countries that still have us enslaved are also in the European Union. How they cause what happened to Kenya? They use the IMF and other world lending agencies. They exploit a country, suck out all its minerals, and when you have no mineral, they make sure they have to have a leader that can keep their knees in the neck of your country. So the only reason why Rwanda is progressing right now is because they have one man who is a dictator. And because they can't bring the democracy where they can use it to put in a puppet so they can start gouging out Rwanda, they are angry with the man. Because anywhere the perfect parasite turns up and bring democracy, they follow it with poverty, crime, diseases, and high debt and mass exploitation. In the case of Kenya, which is a classic case of what is done all over Africa, when they exploit it to an extent and they see that your country is in poverty, what they do? They send in these international agency, World Bank or IMF, to give you a loan. But here is what they do when they come to give you the loan now. They say, listen, for you to get the loan, you can't build no more schools. If we are to give you the loan, you cannot create any more jobs. Don't buy so much medicines for your hospitals. Don't put in more hospital beds. And they tell you to do everything stipulation that can keep you from progressing or uplifting your country. Then they charge you somewhere between 11 and 18% interest on those loans. Now, those loans can never ever be repaid because it is by educating your people through which you will be able to have more educated people who are more productive, who can have more value to your country, and through which you'll be able to pay back the loans. But them tell you, say, listen, because they don't want you to pay back the loan, they make sure tell you, say, you cannot educate the people. Don't build no more schools. Don't hire no more teacher. Don't build any more bridge. Don't build a bridge that can, don't build no road that can make you make commerce easier. They try to put, once we're giving you the money, we want you to spend it on things which cannot uplift your country. Just don't do these things. And they make those stipulations. Why? Because by making those stipulations, they ensure the country stays poor. But when these same slave masters are giving the same loans from the IMF or IDB or IADB or World Bank, when they are giving it to European countries, members of the same slave cabal, what they do, they give these loans at 3%, 4%, while with you is 11 to 18%. And they justify it by saying, because these countries find it easier to repay their loans, so they are less of a risk. So because they are less of a risk, we can give it to them at a lower rate because we are guaranteed payment. But because you are more likely to default, even though at them I make sure say you are going to default by putting in things which you can develop your country, and say you are going to default, so since you are going to default, we have to give you a higher interest rate. In fact, sometimes the World Bank offers grants to the rich countries. They don't even give them a loan when they're broke. They just give them grant. In other words, free money. But you as an African country now get no free money. Now here is what is causing the problem down in Kenya. Paying the interest, just paying the interest on the loan for the Kenyan country of Kenya, to those international lending agencies take up 68% of its GDP. So all the money that that country makes in an entire year, only about 32% is left to fund the country. And these lenders have put the country in a state where it will never be able to ever repay. Now, Yatem's slavery done, but let us look at how these black collaborators help with this. Let's look at President Ruto himself. When he was campaigning to come into office, he said that he was going to create 1 million new jobs over the next 2 years. 1 million. Upon becoming president of Kenya, we have not, as a matter of fact, unemployment has risen. In other words, him create more joblessness than was in Kenya before he went in. Some Kenyans left university 5, 6, 7 years ago and virtually sell bag juice in Kenya. And then him go on top of that now and take foreign money, do foolishness with it, and then start tax the people them now to pay back the interest on the loan. Can anybody wicked, sir? But the perfect parasite and the World Bank and the IMF and the other slave masters inside Europe love him to death. They love him so much that because they form an alliance with him so that he can keep Kenya as much in the dark as anything. Here is what they did. The International Court of Justice, which is positioned in The Hague, right in Europe where all of the slave masters now live, well, apart from the perfect parasite who exists in our region, he was charged by that court for the killing of 1,200 Kenyans during the election which brought him to power. And after them charged Ruto for that crime, of course that was after he won, they look like they seem to have made a deal with them. From them have him in their pocket. You know what they did? They said, listen, we will drop these charges. Obviously this is what happened. Because those charges just went away and they dropped all charges against him. It is obvious that they made a pact with him. Say, listen, we will forget about the 1,200 murders that you have committed or called to have been committed in your name in Kenya if you can just stay in our pocket. And those charges just went away. And then him start to take the loans. And he start to neglect all hospitals. And the two main places, the two main things that the World Bank and the Perfect Parasite and the whole cabal of them never want to see develop in Africa are health and education. The more of your people we can dead from diseases, all the better for them. The more people in your country that remains uneducated, all the better for them. And of course, coming third behind those, close behind those, is infrastructure development. They don't want you to get no dams, they don't want you to get no railway, they don't want you to get no new roads. Don't tell me say slavery done. Colonialism is still with us. Only 4 African countries are free. Now, Ruto is so much in the pocket of the Perfect Parasite and its cabal to the extent that they can tell Ruto has now sent people to Haiti, sent soldiers to Haiti as a peacekeeping force. Now, they are using Haiti, they are using Kenya, because what they can say is, see, is an African country in the Caribbean helping to quell an Afrocentric population and to see if it can help to fix things. But I just use them, I use the Kenyans. Like how them I use Ruto in his, who they have stuffed in their pockets. Guys, let me tell you something. There is one way for Kenya and the rest of the world, all this country in the third world, to be completely free. Abandon the IMF, and it is simple. Abandon the IMF. Do not pay another loan. Forget about the loans that Kenya has with the IMF. 1. They can't hurt Kenya again. Why they can't hurt Kenya? Because there is a new, this is a multipolar world where the US dollar is falling and BRICS is rising. The 2 countries that has never had black slaves are siding, and these countries have sided with Africa all these years of when Europe had its knees in its neck. And they have found the BRICS nations. And every single country, if they join BRICS, they don't need IMF. They don't even have to repay any loan to the IMF. Why? Because they will never need to get another loan from IMF. The BRICS countries has everything that African countries need. They have everything that every country in the Caribbean needs. Nobody needs the Perfect Parasite and its cabal in Europe. So with one fell swoop, Kenya can just start trading with the BRICS country, trading in its own currency, the Kenyan shilling, and take all future loans from an institution called the New Development Bank. The New Development Bank is owned by BRICS. I want to explain BRICS because I suppose everybody who is on this post now would have known of BRICS. And BRICS countries make every single commodity and has every single commodity that Kenya needs. So they don't need Europe. They do not need the Perfect Parasite, because the Perfect Parasite will have to run back to Africa if they need anything. It is they who needs us. That's why they have been exploiting Africa for 500 plus years and still have the knee in an African neck to this blessed day. So what they need to do is to get out Ruto, get a good person who cares about Africa. Or should I say, in this case, who cares about Kenya. Pretend as if IMF does not exist. Just relieve yourself of that loan completely. Remember now, it is impossible, absolutely and totally impossible for the World Bank or the IMF or any bank, any international agency owned by the Perfect Parasite to hurt you. Because they are no longer top dog. It's BRICS who run things. It's the new development bank who run things. So, Africa can be free and will be free. We just want some men with balls. So, guys, for those of you who didn't know, now you know. Thanks for visiting my channel. Like, share, leave a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.